Welcome to my November wrap-up video.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental.
So in November, I read 11 books. I also did NaNoWriMo and won NaNoWriMo. Don't ask me how I wrote 50,000 words and read 11 books. I don't know. The first book I read is The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I personally feel that Holly Black is a fantastic writer. She really knows how to draw you into the story without overusing her words. And I must say that this novel has one of the best first scenes in a novel I've ever read. It was amazing. So I highly recommend The Coldest Girl in Cold Town. Go pick it up, go get your copy. It was a fantastic read. It is a young adult paranormal romance type of deal, but not so heavy on the romance. The world has an apocalyptic feel to it, and it is a vampire novel. So if you're into that and you haven't yet read this book, what are you waiting for? I highly recommend it. Go pick it up. The next book I read is a new adult book by an author called R.S. Gray, and she is an independent self-published author, and the book is called With This Heart. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't love it, and I probably won't be rereading it, but I do recommend it. If you do look at the reviews on Goodreads, you will see that a lot of people really love this book. It's very interesting, and I enjoyed the storyline. I just found it a bit cliche at parts and trite at others, and I also found that the author kind of got lazy with her writing towards the end and tried too hard to wrap everything in a neat little bow, when I think that the story could have used a little bit more surprise and just, I don't know, it just didn't have to be so cookie cutter sweet for the subject matter. I will say, however, that this is another book that has one of the most interesting, funniest, and most unique first scenes I've ever read. It has to do with a funeral home, a young girl looking for an urn. I don't even know, I don't want to spoil it, but it is really good. The story follows our main protagonist, whose name is Abby, and she has just gotten a new heart. Thus the title, With This Heart. And her love interest's name is Beck, and he was a very fascinating character. I really enjoyed him. Now, R.S. Gray is known for her wit and just how funny her books are. If you haven't read anything else by her, this is a great book to start with. I do like some of her other novels. She has a way of writing so, oh my gosh, it's so entertaining that it's laugh out loud funny. Now this book is more on the more sober and serious end of her novels. Usually she writes, more comedically, but it is a great novel to start with if you haven't read anything by this author before, and she's pretty darn funny. I've read some books by her that were, maybe 3-star reads, and I would bump it up just for the laughs alone. So yes, that was the second book I read this month. I will also add that With This Heart is an e-read. I do not believe that there are any physical copies available, although I might be wrong. But if you have an e-reader, you can just download it straight from the Amazon store. The next book I picked up was Delirium by Lauren Oliver, which is the first book in the Delirium series. I didn't finish it. I read about, 100 or so pages in, and I just lost interest. And then this was another book I read on my Kindle via my library's e-library, and I just lost interest in the story. I was really frustrated by the main character, Lena, I think her name was. I wasn't too fond of her. I also found the romance to be just not believable. I didn't care enough about about Lena and Alex. I didn't care about Alex at all. I care less about him. I don't know. It had a little bit of insta-lovey in there that I wasn't on that train. I didn't like it. And then I also found the whole premise of the dystopian world just to be unbelievable. There weren't, maybe the books get better as the series get on, but in this first book, I just couldn't believe that an entire world believed that love was a disease. I don't know. It was just, I'm bumbling this, but I didn't believe it. That's what it comes down to. It just didn't seem believable. It didn't seem probable to me. So I will try and pick it up again later, but personally, I just think I'm over dystopians right now. So yeah, that's one that unfortunately I did not finish, and no, I am not counting it in the 11 books I read. This would have been the 12th book, but I didn't finish it. I'm sorry, Lauren Oliver. I actually think that she's an amazing writer, and that's what was so hard, because as I was reading it, I was thinking, wow, Lauren Oliver is an amazing writer. I love the way she writes. I love the way she strings words together. I just hate this storyline. So I think I'm going to try and read something else by her. Next, I picked up The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I smiled just saying that title because I absolutely loved it. I devoured it. I read it in less than 24 hours. And I was really impressed that this came from an author so young and who had only had one previous book published. I thought the storyline was wonderful. I loved the way that she unfolded the story. I loved how we got to watch Ruby from 10 years old up until when the story began, when she was about 16, 17, I think. I loved all the characters. Alexandra Bracken did a wonderful, amazing job making you care about these people, making you root for them. Ruby was a fantastic character. She had an arc, and so I cannot wait to see how much more she grows and develops as the series continues. And yes, I just did pick up Never Fade in my newest haul, which I will link below if you haven't seen it yet, and I will also annotate at the end of this video so you can go watch that haul. But I did pick up Never Fade, and I'm really excited to get into it, and after that I can't wait to read In the Afterlight and finish up this series. But yes, I gave this first book, The Darkest Minds, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I will for sure be rereading it. I will be for sure purchasing a copy of this book and probably the entire series. And yes, I really loved it. 4 stars. So good. Not to mention, I thought that the romantic relationship in The Darkest Minds was developed brilliantly. It wasn't too much and it wasn't too little. It was insta-love in a way, but more on the attraction side of things, and it was believable, and Liam was an amazing, amazing character, or he is. I love him. I love the way that Alexandra Bracken wrote him, and just his personality traits I really enjoyed, and yes, I found him to be very believable. Unlike Delirium. I don't know what happened there. Don't know what happened. Next book I picked up is Dare You To by Katie McGarry, and it is book 2 in her series that she has going on. The first book was Crash Into You, and no, that's not true. The first book was Pushing the Limits, and yes, so I picked up the second book, Dare You To, which follows Beth Risk and Ryan Stone, and we got to see both of their point of views, which I really enjoyed. I loved Ryan a lot more than I loved Beth. I understood why she was the way she was with, the background that she has and her struggles and her family drama and her relationship with her mother. And I understood that, but I still loved Ryan a little bit more. His character, to me, I related to his character a lot more. And he was just so lovable, and he was kind of like Beth's rock. And the romantic relationship between the two of them is very sweet, believable, takes time to develop, which I appreciated. And they do have a rocky beginning and a very prickly start to their relationship. It's kind of a hate to friendship to love type of storyline, which I did enjoy. And there is a lot of family drama in the background surrounding it, especially with, you know, Beth's history, where she grew up, in her relationship with her mother and her mother's relationship with her abusive, dangerous boyfriend. There's a lot of triggers in this book. If you have any type of substance abuse triggers or self-harm triggers, I would just be careful reading this book. So, but otherwise, I wish I could have given it 3.5 stars on Goodreads, but you can't give half stars. So I gave it 4 stars, but I justified it because the other 0.5 honestly would be for Ryan. I really loved his character. I found him lovable and enjoyable, and his relationship to baseball versus his relationship to his budding writing talent was really well handled. So good job, Katie McGarry. I liked it. And then right after I read Dare You To, I picked up the 3rd book in the series, which is Crash Into You. And this was my personal favorite in the series so far. I know she has one more coming out, and then I don't know if she's going to write any more after that. But Crash Into You is my favorite so far because I loved both protagonists, both male and female protagonists. And Crash Into You follows Rachel Young and Isaiah Walker, I believe. Yes, Rachel Young and Isaiah Walker. And I loved them both equally. Maybe Isaiah a little bit more. I think that Katie McGarry does an excellent job writing male characters, which is hard to do for a female writer, but she does a great job making her male characters lovable, believable, relatable. They have flaws, they're not perfect. And her female characters I don't tend to like as much, but you know, they're still good. She still does a good job with them. Rachel is my favorite so far in the series. This storyline is kind of the trope of rich girl falls in love with a boy from the wrong side of the tracks. And if you have read Dare You To, or even Pushing the Limits, then you recognize Isaiah because he is a side character in the first 2 books in the series. So you get to kind of watch him and you kind of get to know him as a side character, and then now in his own book you kind of get to be in his head, which I really enjoyed. I loved him. I really did. So I gave this book 4 stars on Goodreads. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, it's my favorite of the series so far, and I do recommend it. I don't think there were any triggers in this that I can think of offhand, but you should know that the Carrie McGarry books do... Carrie McGarry? Who's Carrie McGarry? Oh my gosh, I can't talk. The KT McGarry books do include substance abuse, domestic violence, yeah, just be aware of that. There are also a lot of dysfunctional family issues. Isaiah is a foster kid, so, you know, his parents are MIA, and then in this book, he kind of has issues with his mom, and you kind of get to watch that. His relationship to his caseworker, who is in charge of his case. In foster care, you get to see their relationship, and as always, his best friends. You even get to see a little bit of Beth and Ryan from the last book, and of course the 2 main protagonists from Pushing the Limits. I can't remember their names right now. But yes, so I did enjoy this book the most so far in the series. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I do recommend it. So there you go. And before I forget, this series is a young adult contemporary, young adult contemporary series with lots of romance and kissing. If you do not like kissing, do not read these books. You have been warned. The next book I read is Life as We Knew It by Susan Beth Pfeffer. And this book was written in diary form. We follow the main character, who's a young girl. This is a young adult, and it's not post-apocalyptic. It's like as the apocalyptic events are happening. And basically the main premise is there is this asteroid that's supposed to fly by, and everyone's really excited because it's supposed to come really close to the Earth, and it's kind of this big event, and everyone's going outside with their telescopes and their families to watch. And instead, something goes wrong, and the asteroid actually hits the moon and knocks it off its gravitational pull. So now the moon is tilted, and this is having all sorts of adverse reactions on Earth. You have tsunamis happening, earthquakes, the tides are coming in, and total chaos and destruction just erupts. Now, the story takes place in the United States, so through the main character's eyes, through her journals or diary entries, you sort of get to follow her along on this journey of what happens, and what happens to her and her family, and her family, and her community, and just how everything starts to unravel until it becomes kind of a survival of the fittest type situation. Straight up, people are dying, people are looting and rioting, the world has gone mad, there's no food, everything just starts to fall apart, and she chronicles all of it while still trying to keep her family safe and intact and trying to keep everyone together. And it's funny because when I finished reading it, I gave it 3 stars, but now I'm thinking I might have to change it to 4 stars because the book has really stayed with me. It stuck with me. I find myself thinking about it from time to time because it explores really intense, deep themes about unconditional love, family, survival, the environment, and just what it would be like. And because it was in first person, you really do get to put yourself in her shoes and experience what she's experiencing. And I mean, she goes through some stuff. It's not, it's not light reading. There's some really horrific things that happen. Death is a very heavy topic. A lot of people die. A lot of people close to the main character dies. And just how she grows up during this, because I believe she's a junior in high school when this all starts happening. She has a little brother and an older brother who is college aged. Her little brother is about 10 or so. I might be wrong. And then her parents are divorced, and she lives with her mother, who is a writer. And then her father has remarried a much younger woman, and he lives in another state with his new wife. So a lot of stuff happens. You kind of get to watch society and civilization kind of unravel and fall apart. And yeah, I highly recommend it. It's Life as We Knew It by Beth. Life as We Knew It by Susan Beth Pfeffer. And yeah, it was good. Made you think. It's one of those. After reading that, I needed to read something more light and fluffy and happy. So I picked up My Life Next Door by Hunter Fitzpatrick. And this is a young adult contemporary romance, but it's not a full throttle, full-fledged romance. You have some family stuff going on in the background as well. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I don't know, I really liked it. I do recommend it. It was a good read, and the reason that I like it so much is the characters were so likable and relatable, and there was a twist that I did not see coming, and I was impressed. Good job, Hunter Fitzpatrick, because I didn't see it coming. The way that it was set up and just just kind of happened. And I was like, ooh, this is good. I didn't see that coming. So just for that alone, I gave it 4 stars. And yeah, you should go check it out. Now, the last 4 books I read this month are all romance novels. And I'm talking about adult romance. And it really took me by surprise because I haven't read adult romance in a long time. But something about how much I was writing during NaNoWriMo, and when I wanted to read, I just wanted to read about something just happy, about people just falling in love, and I just wanted to escape into that world. And there are also historical romances, which are my favorite type of adult romance novels, is the historicals. And they were all, with the exception of one, written by Mary Bloch. I think that's how you say her last name, I'm not sure. Mary Bloch. And then the other one I read was by Loretta Chase. I can't talk, y'all. It's so late at night. If you can't tell, I'm filming kind of late and I cannot speak. But the other novel was written by Loretta Chase. And both Loretta Chase and Mary Bloch have written novels that I have loved in the past, and they are excellent, excellent writers. They not only do a great job with the romance, but with the world building and, you know, really doing their research, because they write historical romance and it's believable. I believe it. From the language to the costumes and the world and social events going on at the time, they do an excellent job with their world building and their research, so kudos to them. The first one I read is the one by Loretta Chase, and it's part of a series, but it's not the first one in the series. With romance novels, it doesn't matter as much if you go out of order. I mean, it depends, but it doesn't matter as much because the books are so focused on the main love interests that you don't really get spoiled for the rest of the series usually. So this book, I believe, was the second book in her Dressmaker series, which follows a trio of sisters who own a dress shop in London. And in this particular book, it was called Scandal Wears Satin, and I really liked it. The main protagonist, female protagonist, was one of the sisters. She's the middle sister, and she falls in love with a guy who's kind of out of her league status-wise, because she's just a commoner and she kind of has a shady background, and he's, you know, he's a lord, so his status is a lot higher than hers, and usually they don't swim in the same social circles, and usually it would be frowned upon for them to even, you know, fraternize with one another. So I really enjoyed this romance. It was very sweet, but at the same time not saccharine sweet. There was bite to it. Loretta Chase is well known for her witty banter. Her banter, oh my gosh, she knows how to write that kind of back and forth, you know, romantic comedy style banter that is just so enjoyable to read, and it's just such a great way to, you know, build up characters and to build up the relationship between characters. So I really enjoyed that. There's a lot of witty banter, a lot of dry humor and sarcasm from both of the main characters, which I also loved. I gave it 3 stars because I've been reading Loretta Chase for a long time, and she has written way better stuff than this. So compared to all her other stuff, it's a 3-star read for me. Next, I picked up the first book by Mary Bloch that I read, and it's called, okay, get ready for the super cheesy romance novel title, One Night for Love. Oh my gosh, where do they come up with these titles? I don't know. But I really enjoyed this one. I also gave it 3 stars because while it was good, it didn't knock my socks off. I wasn't like, ooh, I need to go buy this, you know, and I'm not sure that I would ever reread it. I did get it from the e-library on my Kindle, so. But anyways, I enjoyed it. What I enjoyed about it is that it wasn't your usual romance. The two protagonists had so many obstacles, and they were realistic obstacles, and they handled it very realistically. It wasn't, you know, oh, we're in love and everything's gonna be fine now and love conquers all. No, it was very realistic. I also enjoyed it because the main female protagonist had such a character arc. It was amazing. She grew and she changed so much throughout the course of the novel. The main protagonist did as well, but not as much as the female. And I love how much Mary Block focused on her becoming a better person for herself, not for the guy, not because she was in love with him, but because she wanted it for herself, which is not something that you see in a lot of romance novels. So good job, Miss Block. I loved it. Next book by her I picked up was a book in a series that she has going on, and it is the Survivors Club series, and I read books 1 and 2, and it's all in the same world as One Night for Love, but it's separate series. So the first book is called The Proposal, and the second book was called The Arrangement. I'm not going to go too much into them. You can look them up on Goodreads if you're interested in adult romance or you want to start reading them. I recommend these. I gave them both 3 stars, and the reason being, once again, I didn't find them to be, you know, amazing, knocking my socks off, me running to the bookstore wanting to buy them / planning on rereading them. I just thought they were good and solid and enjoyable. Now, what I loved about this is it was also unusual, and I'm starting to see a pattern with Mary Block, that she writes kind of more realistic, less typical type romance. And the Survivors Club, there's a reason that it's called the Survivors Club. Each of the main characters or in the club have survived war, and they each have a disfigurement or gosh, I can't think of the right word, but in The Proposal, the main character has emotionally scarred from what he went through. And then in The Arrangement, the main character, both male characters I'm talking about, the male main character in The Arrangement is physically scarred from war. He's blind, which was so cool. I mean, how often do you get to read about a blind male protagonist in a romance novel? That like almost never happens. So I loved that. I loved that these men were not these perfect specimens, and the women had their flaws too. So I appreciated that. And yeah, I don't want to go into it and tell you the storyline. If you're interested, go check them out. I recommend them if you want to get into romance, or you just want to read some good romance novels and you like this genre. I would recommend these because they're not typical, they're not usual, and Mary Block is a great writer. Once again, these are historicals, and she did her research. The reading, the way it read was so wonderful, and just the conversations between the main characters were so interesting. It wasn't just like, oh, we love each other, you know, bam, let's get to it. No, there was a building of a relationship. There were conversations that were intriguing and interesting and deep and moving. I highlighted a whole bunch of quotes. Maybe I will include them, but yeah. So go check them out if you're interested. And that's it. That's it. Oh my God, I'm done. I'm so happy. You don't understand. It's late at night. This is the 3rd video I filmed today. I don't think I have any more saliva in my mouth. But yes, those were all the books I read in November. Excuse my scatterbrain, y'all, in this video. And yep, that's it. Those are all the books I read. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching me crack up and go crazy. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And you guys tell me what you read in the month of November and what you would recommend. I'm always on the lookout for new book recommendations. And I will see you in my next Vlogmas video. Yeah, that's it. Bye. Bye, guys. One night to love. Oh, excuse me. Oh. You tell me what you read in November. Why do I keep pointing at you? I'm losing it. You guys tell me what you read in the months. Vlogmas, I'm doing Vlogmas. Vlogmas, I'm doing Vlogmas. It's kind of sad how excited I get about these things.